To bridge the gap between the inefficiencies of a private automobile that uses all kinds of energy resources and the inconvenience of a bus or a rail system, we need another kind of transportation system. And so what we have is a model called demand responsive transit. And the way that works is that you use a cell phone, just like this, your regular cell phone, request a ride. Computer software would group you and other people who are in your neighborhood nearby with a vehicle that's roaming, has no set route or schedule, will come and pick you up and take you to your destination and to everyone's destinations.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. My guest today has been involved with transportation advocacy and land use planning and sustainability, and that might sound boring, but when we reach peak oil, we're going to be looking at what do we do about transportation. My guest is Alan Hancock from Eugene, Oregon. Thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I do mean that. I think that one of the thorniest issues we've got around declining petroleum is transport, which uses a lot of it.
That's right.
What are you thinking on that?
Okay. Well, the solutions that people have been coming up with are incredibly they're brilliant. I mean, we have ethanol, we have biodiesel, we have alternatives to transportation, bicycling, walking, and so forth.
Electric cars,
Electric
plug-in
cars,
hybrids.
Hydrogen. But there's problems with those.
Okay.
There seems to be kind of three different ways that society is addressing transportation right now, and trying to reduce carbon footprint, try to reduce the amount of petroleum used. The first strategy is fuel substitution.
Right, that's where we use ethanol or biodiesel or something, hydrogen, something else.
Yeah, but basically we're still using individual cars to get around, just like we do today.
I'd love to.
And we love to do that. but the problem with that is that it doesn't address sprawl.
Yeah.
It doesn't address the fact that thousands and thousands of people die in accidents.
That's true.
It doesn't address the fact that we're wasting our time sitting in traffic jams.
And more and more.
More and more as the population grows.
Right.
So, and many of those technologies are really uncertain. You know, we talk about hydrogen cells. Well, how long is it going to be?
That's right.
Do we have time to wait for that?
And the biofuels, except for, are still either going to use an enormous amount of land because they're not particularly efficient, or they're sort of unproven on the scale that we're using petroleum.
That's right. That's right. So there's some significant problems with the fuel substitution model, and yet that's mostly what we're seeing.
Well, we don't want to give up what we have.
Yeah.
It's comfortable and
Yeah, we still want to be able to get from where we're at to where we want to go easily and quickly. That leads us into the second approach, which is alternatives such as rail, bus, bicycles, and walking.
Sure.
And there's a lot of efforts now to increase the public subsidy of rail and bus, and that's all good, and I'm all for that. But as you know, taking a bus is not convenient.
That's right. You have to go to its schedule, not necessarily when you want to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it might take you to a place that you don't necessarily want to go either. You have to follow the route and you have to follow the schedule.
And you have to find a way to link when you get to the other end, and there may or may not be a way to do that.
Yeah. And so for that reason, there's just a threshold of potential for transit.
Right.
And I think we should definitely increase the infrastructure, especially of intercity rail and public transit within cities. But it's going to always be a limitation.
Yeah.
And same with, say, bicycling. There's just only so much that you can expect the general public to do. If you've got kids, traveling at night with kids on a bicycle, it's just not going to really happen. It's just
it's not going to cut it.
It's not. It's a great alternative, but it's not everything. Then the third thing that we've seen is an effort to redesign our cities and our landscape in a way so that the places that people want to go are close to where they live.
Okay.
And those are also very admirable approaches.
I mean, yes, we do need convenience stores in the middle of our suburban subdivisions and the
Yeah.
repair shop and
Yeah.
so on, but it's still not going to cover everything.
No, and the problem with that is that it's incredibly expensive to redesign our cities. It's going to take decades in some cases to be able to do that and require phenomenal amounts of resources to be able to rebuild.
Which we may or may not have.
We may not have that
Or
time.
have it inexpensively, or have the petroleum to move all that stuff there.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Can't redesign the world yet, I hear.
Okay. So when we think about transportation alternatives, you need to put in a larger context of not trying to think through the blinders of getting in a vehicle and getting from A to B and how do we just change the fuel, but to think about how can we efficiently use what we already have. So there's this concept called demand responsive transit.
Let's take that slowly. Demand responsive transit.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What that means is that the transit, the public transit, it responds to the demand. And I'll give you an example of something that's being developed. It's still conceptual at this point, but one of the advantages of it is that all the technology and all the infrastructure is already in place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an impressive start. We don't have to start at ground zero.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the concept is that rather than having a public transit system where you have buses and rail lines and so forth that have fixed routes and fixed schedules,
Okay.
you've got a fleet of vehicles, a large fleet of vehicles. In a city, it might be hundreds, even thousands of vehicles that hold a capacity of maybe 10 to 15 people each.
So little vans or minibus kind of things.
Right.
Okay.
Which if you happen to go to a third world country, I don't know if you've been to a third world
have,
country.
right.
They all often have these kind of these jitneys
Yes,
or vehicles that
yes.
you can hire out. They're very chaotic and you don't know if the wheels are going to stay on.
In Thailand, there were trucks that had benches on
That's
either
right.
side with a cover on it, and there were maybe 15 of us and a place to put your bags of groceries, and that's
right.
what people went down the mountain to the...
That's right.
Yeah, all right.
And it's very efficient, and that's how people who in those countries can get to the places they need to
Sure.
for only a little bit of money because they don't have much money to buy
right.
their own vehicle.
That's right.
So a more high-tech solution that might work for Americans and Europeans is one where we have a fleet of vehicles that could be operated by a municipality or it could be operated by a business. Okay. And they don't have any particular set route. They don't have any particular time schedule. But let's just say that you, Janae, want to go to, down to the video store. It's a few miles away. So what you might do is you might pick up your cell phone like this. And cell phones nowadays, they all have GPSs in them. So it knows where you are.
Aha. So it's got GPS. Let's back up. What's a GPS?
Yeah. That's a geographical positioning system.
So it tells where on the planet I am located.
Yeah.
This cell phone is located.
That's right.
Okay.
So you dial a phone number, it knows where you are, or you could tell someone.
I'm at the corner of here and here.
You're at the corner. And then you'll say where you want to go.
Okay.
And if it happens to be a place that you go regularly, you could just key it in. It would know
Right.
that. And then that would go through some software and it would find one of these vehicles that's near you and going in the direction you want to go.
Aha.
So in fact, there may be other people going to the video store.
So you don't even have necessarily a dispatcher person, per se?
No, it can actually be all done with software.
Aha.
Right. And then the person who's on board, who's driving the vehicle, will simply get directions.
On where to swing by on the way.
That's right. So
jog
we go
over to
right,
here.
left, so forth, straight. They're making more or less a straight route from where you are to where you want to go.
Right. Now, they may have other stops. I mean, they
That's
get called
right.
in to do other stops along the way, so you have to allow that it's going to be a zigzag route to your destination.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's more or less a straight line because it's only ordering vehicles that are in your area and going the direction that you want to
Got
be
it.
going.
Sure.
So everyone's going kind of the same way
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
same
yeah.
bus. Now, with technology, it can also estimate how long you might be waiting. So your cell phone will say your ride will be available in 3 minutes. So you can keep having conversation here, you can keep working until you see, bus is going to be here in 30 seconds. So you walk out your front door and it picks you up right at your curb.
Wow. Now there's the convenience factor. That's a huge
Exactly.
win.
That's what makes it so much more advantageous than a bus,
Yeah.
because it's on your schedule and it's where you're at.
It's somewhat similar to the shuttle services to the airport. Now, that's a much more limited version, but they'll go pick up the passengers and have various vehicles that at least go back and forth from the airport to various places.
There is some similarity to that. Yeah.
So, any more?
Well, there's a lot of other advantages to this. For example, if it's late at night,
Yes.
and if you're a woman, you may not want to be taking a bus.
That's right.
At 11 o'clock at night that drops you off 6 blocks from your house. But with a demand responsive transit system, the vehicle comes right to your door. Or if you're elderly and you
Yes.
might not be able
Sure.
to
walk that or
Yeah.
whatever, get back.
Or if you're a child and want to just go to school and there's no more school bus service available, and the parents want to get to work on time, they can be certain that there's some safety because you have a paid driver
Yes.
who can make sure that they're safe until
Right.
they get to the school. So
Right.
it provides an access level to transit that we don't currently have.
What I really like is that we don't have to invent anything new here.
That's
We're
right.
just using what we've already got.
That's right. We have GPSs, we have cell phones.
And they're more ubiquitous, which makes that part easier.
That's right. And we already have computer software. And we already have, the most important is we already have the roads.
Yes, we have the
Yeah.
roads and we have vehicles, and we may get more advanced vehicles,
that's
but
right.
at least we have the road infrastructure.
Right. We could use just regular gasoline burning vans
Sure.
or minibuses right now. But as we get advances along the way, we could use hybrid vehicles, we could use fuel cells, whatever it is in the future to make that more efficient. But the main thing, one of the main things that makes this an approach that is sustainable is that we are using the space within the vehicle to its fullest capacity.
There you go.
Because when you go down the highway, how many vehicles?
One person.
Yeah.
I just did one person.
Yeah.
One person per car. It's like a
Yeah,
99%.
all that
One
space.
person.
Now, further down the road, after this model is accepted, and I believe that in time this will be the way people primarily get around, we could also certify drivers using their own vehicles.
I can imagine that. We need a scalable model
That's right.
that works in a distributed rural area like we have to all the way into a big city.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we may provide our own.
So I imagine in the future that private vehicles will be used in the most rural areas to get people to more central locations, and then people will be more aggregated.
That's right. And then we can do the
Yeah.
that's-
So let's say you want to go from your place here, which is rather rural, to let's say a friend's house in the suburbs of San Francisco.
okay.
So what might happen is you might take your private vehicle to the smallest city nearby, and then from there, the demand responsive transit would bring people together to take you to the train.
Yeah.
And you've called in your ride, so it will arrive within minutes of when you arrive. So there's no waiting time or anything like that. It's just there for you, and it takes you to the train station. You catch the train, takes you to San Francisco, or you're near your destination, but then you got to get to your friend's house. And that's
Right.
another reason why people don't take public transportation. They don't take trains, because when you get to the other end,
Right.
what are you going to do? You don't know.
Right. You're stuck. You don't know this town. You
Yeah.
don't know. You don't know. You don't have a. Yeah.
Yeah, so this way, you just have to say where you want to go, and all that work is done for you, and you end up on their doorstep. And if you have to visit 2 or 3 people, you can still get around once you're there.
Boy, do we need this.
Yeah, so it makes sense. It's not a substitution for other kinds of public transit. In fact, it actually encourages the use of trains and buses.
It's a
as
good
well.
augmentation. I mean, it kind of fills that gap between the one person or the personal vehicle and the public transit. And
Yeah.
that is a big gap.
Yeah, it is a
us.
big gap. I like to think of it as taking the very best aspects of a taxi,
Yes.
of a private taxi, and the best aspects of public transportation, and kind of bringing those together.
Now, how would this get funded?
Okay, that's a really important question. The cost of something like this is relatively very small, because all we're talking about are basically vehicles and software, because people are already have their cell phone. They're already
That's right. They're paying for their own cell phone
for that.
Sure.
And we already have GPSs. Those are just on on board a lot of vehicles these days, and we already have the roadways. So the capital cost to this could be raised either through a forward-looking municipality or through federal pilot project, or it actually could start by a business recognizing this as an opportunity. There was a study that was conducted by some individuals in Britain where this concept, at least where I first heard of it a number of years ago, and they determined that the average cost for a ride would be about the same as a standard bus fare. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Which
So-
is much cheaper than a taxi.
Oh, much cheaper. Yeah.
I mean,
so you're
that's-
looking like maybe $1 or $2, something like that, depending how far you go.
Right, sure.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's in the realm of affordability for people.
That's right. Yeah.
And no parking problems as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk just a second about, if we have a moment to talk about that. One of the exciting things about this is over time, as people need fewer and fewer vehicles, then we have less need for parking. Especially in cities, that's a valuable property that can be used for other purposes. And so that can be converted to, well, it could be converted to housing or to business, to parkland, whatever.
Gardens.
Garden, whatever good use there is.
Yeah.
And even if some of it is apartments or housing, then you've increased the density.
Right.
And then this system even works more effectively because there's more people in a smaller area.
I've read that.
So unlike our current transportation system, which just encourages more sprawl, as people drive more, than you need freeways, and you need freeways to get more driving, this actually encourages living more closely together with one another.
This might also permit the kind of cap on building yet more roads and yet wider highways.
That's right. We wouldn't need to build more highways. If we can reduce our private automobile use by even 10 or 20%, that will reduce the congestion in almost all the big cities. Yeah, hugely. It's that last 10 or 20% is what causes all the traffic jams. So not every. I should just say that this is not intended to be a replacement of the private automobile. We'll still have those. There'll still be a need for them.
I'm sure.
But I've had people ask, well, are you trying to get rid of automobiles? Like, no, but I'm just saying that there's a place for this.
And I can imagine what we're going to need is that creative use of this. If this can work in the in-between space, then the private automobile that is an electric, because that most of our trips being shorter distance, means that we can, there we are off some of the petroleum. It still takes petroleum at this moment to make the vehicles.
That's right.
But it could allow us some breathing space here for different vehicles, different things for different distances or different situations.
Or different uses. For example,
Right.
let's say a person gave up their car because they could get around through demand-responsive transit, bus, cycling, and so forth. But you still need to go pick up the furniture that you just bought.
Well, then we have our car co-ops or our car rentals that are starting to do more of, I just need this one time and I need the van so I can move stuff.
Yeah. So we have a whole integrated transportation system.
It's really, really nice.
For different.
Has anybody tried a pilot of this yet? Because it feels workable.
It does seem very workable. And as far as I know, it has not been piloted anywhere in the world yet. There are some things that are similar to it. A lot of people say, well, isn't that kind of like the Dial-A-Ride program? Not really. Because with that, you are only sending out vehicles when they're needed, rather than having
sort of circulating around. I see.
Right.
I see.
Right.
I see.
And so I think the biggest challenge to this that will need to be overcome is that it can't be started on a small scale. You can't just have 3 vehicles out there, because otherwise you're going to be waiting too long and no one's going to want to keep doing it.
Right.
So you have to have it on a scale to sort of like get it out there. So we need to test it out in a small city, perhaps one of maybe 30 to 50,000 people, have maybe 50 to 100 of these vehicles put in place, have a marketing plan to get people accustomed to the idea and to try it out for 6 months. I'm convinced that once people understand how convenient it is and how much money that they can save, that they'll adopt it readily.
Actually, I would think that an idea for piloting this is to actually make it free for some period of time.
Yeah, that's
so you
right.
get enough adoptees
Yeah.
and work out the bugs. Because
Yeah.
anything like this, on a scale like this, if you're going to have a bunch of vehicles and you want to have that kind of rapid response,
Yeah.
it's going to take a little, patient people
Sure.
in the beginning to
Yeah,
get that
to learn
worked
how
out.
it works. There's going to be
Yeah,
kinks, sure.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find really compelling about this is that, about a pilot project anyway, is let's say it doesn't work. Let's just suppose.
Okay.
Well, what have you got left over? A bunch of minibuses or vans. You sell them.
That's easy.
So
That's
the
right,
downside
that's right.
potential of this is very small, as opposed to, say, building a new inner city rail line. Millions of dollars.
And you've got the infrastructure built in. And,
Yeah, and it's a fixed route, and like maybe that wasn't the best place to put it. You're dividing your neighbors. The environmental impact statements. It's just enormous. It's going to take us so long to retool our infrastructure that way, or freeways or so forth. So the downside potential is very small, and I think that's what's really appealing. Let me just also speak about the demand responsive part of this, I think, which also increases the efficiency here. And that is that at different times of the day, there's different needs for transit.
Sure.
During commute hours, there's a high need.
Yeah.
And at other times of the day, there's a low need. So as the demand rises, then the vehicles get called into service. You can have independent owner operators. So this stimulates the economy.
So it just, that's great for the local economy. Yes.
Yeah, because now you have all these new drivers that are employed. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the efficiency of getting a lot of people in one vehicle and saving the money that you would have spent on petroleum that would have gone to
10 vehicles, yes.
and to other states and other countries where
That's
petroleum is
true.
produced.
That's right.
And you're taking that money and now spending it on paying a driver who will use it to feed their family and recirculate it in the local economy. So this is also, in addition to a transportation system, it's also a way of revitalizing a local economy. I come from Oregon. We have no automobile manufacturers and we have no petroleum refineries in the state.
Right.
So virtually every dollar, except for maybe the gas station attendants and repair shops, virtually every dollar of transportation goes out of state or out of the country. And that's a suck on our state's economy. This is a way to bring the money, keep it in the economy.
It's really a nice idea. It reminds me that when we visited Thailand, it was like that. There were plenty of these vehicles. They were privately run.
Yep.
They were all the same color, so you knew what they were. You could find them on the street. And I could see that this was a major income for that country.
Yeah.
Actually.
What I envision is having these little buses be all decorated and being being really sexy. You go to Central America and the bus is there. I don't know if you've seen those, but the owners take great pride in their buses and they put big murals on them and they've got big sound systems and they've got you going in
party.
Yeah, it is. You're going in style, and they've got video monitors. You can watch movies. It's
cool.
It's really much more plush than vehicle and than buses we have here in the U.S.
I think that would catch on very well. That's very well. In our last 3 minutes, what haven't we covered? What else about this or anything related to transportation do you want to add in here?
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how this is related to all kinds of social change that we see happening in our midst in creating community. And I think that's another aspect of this that is possible, that you can get groups of people together going to the same place and have conversation. Because you get on a bus together and start seeing people because you're commuting or because you're going to a similar destination, you start seeing people on a regular basis. Then or being dropped off, then you can create community that way. And there's ways to group people based even on interests using software like MySpace or Facebook.
That's a nice idea. I can see.
Yeah.
We're all going to the same meeting.
That's right.
Well,
it can pick up all the people from the neighborhood.
Direction. Yes,
that's right. I'll also just touch briefly too about some of the flexibility of this in terms of pricing too. For example, if you wanted to be economical, you might say, I could use a little exercise today. I'll walk 4 blocks to have the vehicle pick me up. That'll save me, the software predicts it'll save me 75 cents. I'll go ahead and do that. Or it's that rainy night and say, God, I'm tired. I just want to go home. The software can tell you what it's going to cost to drop you off. And it costs you a little bit more to go maybe directly to your home. So there's all kinds of ways in which by using the software, the intelligent software, it can respond to your needs and where you want to go, when you want to go there.
That's what I see is great flexibility.
Yeah.
A really economical system because it uses the existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
With a kind of efficiency that we don't have now.
Yeah. I spoke to a bunch of very conservative Republicans about this last year. And I framed the whole thing in the framework of efficiency, and they totally got into it. By the end, I had almost every one of them saying, well, why don't we have this?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel the same thing.
Yeah. So this isn't just something for kooky left-wing people. This is something people this is something where people can really understand it. Like, oh yeah, this is about energy independence. This is about efficiency. This is about making the best use of our resources to get our basic needs met.
These are brilliant ideas. I'm okay, folks. We want somebody to have the courage to do a pilot on this. It's not going to cost a lot. And I'll bet you in the right community, you'll have plenty of people say, I'll try that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take a different kind of marketing campaign, not just a new product there, because you want people that will play with it. But I can see that happening.
Yeah. I think it'll catch on, and we'll see something. It'll be a really positive change.
Thank you for this idea. We are planting that seed with Peak Moment. You're watching Peak Moment, Community Responses for a Changing Energy Future. My guest is Alan Hancock, and we've been talking about demand responsive transportation. I'm Janaea Donaldson. Join us next time.